Part 10. Pirate's Bounty Don't Run Away. Author, The Desolate Little Purity. Chapter 91. Crocodile was lying in the cage with a dark face. His body was bound by chains and he couldn't move at all, so he could only lie down. The only neck that can move, looking at this and that, feels very melancholy for a while. Mishita stood beside Luogu, looking at his former colleagues in the cage, not knowing what he was thinking. Daisuke hasn't come back yet, and it's not certain whether he will come back. When boarding the boat, she once said that she would go back by herself after this matter was over. As for how to go back, it's hard to say. Maybe Smoker will do something in the meantime. Perhaps, just return to Rogtown in the East China Sea with Tina's help. Luogu didn't really care about these things. Glancing at the state of these people in the cage, Crocodile belongs to the category of unbeatable Xiaoqiang. Now he is lying there thinking about life, and it seems that there is no possibility of checkmate at all. As for others, after escaping from the water and throwing them into the cage, everyone's energy recovered a lot. It can only be said that the vitality is really strong. Looking at these people, Luogu's heart moved, but finally shook his head. People in the Baroque work agency still can't use it casually. It's not that they are worried about possible problems with the Navy, otherwise Makita's side Rogu can't handle it. The point is, these people are hard to trust. Makita has been driven to a corner, and she has no other choice but herself. Coupled with a simple and superficial personality, he is not the kind of person who can put in all his effort, hide his purpose and finally strike back. Such a simple guy is actually the best to control. Treat it with sincerity, promise it with benefit, and then draw a big pie is almost the same. As for Makita, she didn't even need Luogu to draw her big cakes. She always felt that under the influence of Daisuke, this guy had already painted for herself. But other than that, Luogu scanned the faces of these people one by one, finally turned around and sat on the chair under the sun umbrella. "Captain, what are we doing now?" When Makita spoke, she looked in the direction of Albina. "Are we really leaving like this?" "I plan to attend the carnival with them." Luogu glanced at her. "If you want to go, I won't stop you. But now, I have to go to the rainy place." "Rainland." "Banana crocodile," Luogu said with a smile, "and crocodile's wealth." Mishita's eyes suddenly flashed. "I think carnivals and stuff like that are completely meaningless. We are lonely pirate hunters, and as long as we have pirates, that's enough." Luogu patted his face. "Then let's go. No more waiting for Daisuke. As a navy, I guess she will be busy for a while. The most important thing is, from the perspective of the navy, is what we do next really suitable for her presence." Rogu winked at Makita. Mishita's epiphany. Then he rushed to pull the anchor and adjust the sail. Luogu controlled the direction and the ship set off. While the boat was sailing, Crocodile suddenly said hello. Luogu sat reading under the sun umbrella and ignored him. "Norothragu." Crocodile spoke again. Luogu closed the book with satisfaction, and then said with a smile, "Yes, when calling others, it is very impolite to call him hey. Children must be educated when they make mistakes. Now that you are such an old man, you say that I am hitting you, you still scold you. Are you teaching your son a lesson?" Crocodile's face turned dark. "No, you are willing, I am not yet." Luogu rubbed his chest. He did not lie before the fight with Crocodile. It seemed that he was not injured, but in fact he was injured. The impact is not small. Crocodile said solemnly, "Stop talking nonsense. Why are you willing to let me go?" "I won't let go of someone I've already caught." When Luogu was speaking, he took advantage of the opportunity to open the hunter certificate. "It always feels like I haven't seen this thing for centuries. Hunter Qualification Certificate. Bearer Norothragu. V5 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 V3 V5. Coin Black Iron Coin 1. Bailey 196270000 can be withdrawn. The coin shop is open. Between the fall is open. Million. Luogu blinked. After catching Aaron before, he hasn't made any income. In the process, he also spent million to buy black iron coins to upgrade his armed domineering level, and his money almost dropped to the million mark at one point. Now adding these million, it is still less than million. There is still a full million short of a gold coin. Thinking about it, I feel very sad. Pirate hunters are nothing more than mad dogs on the sea that smell money and bite pirates. Let me go and I will pay enough value. Crocodile's voice was cold, but if you don't want to, I guarantee you won't get 1/10 of all my property. Luogu froze for a moment, his face became a little stiff. Crocodile sneered, how about thinking about it? Luogu sighed deeply. Those who rob pirates are considered trophies and can be included in the hunter's license. On the contrary, does what the pirate gives me count? Speaking of which, Mouse gave it to me before, but the money couldn't be charged at all. Although my gold finger is a gold finger, the problem is that this guy is too principled. You don't need any money. Thinking of this, Luogu felt even more sad. It's okay if I can't summon the dragon, but it's still causing trouble for me. Yet Crocodile was also confused. This reaction seemed a bit unusual. Why was it different from what he thought? Seeing Luogu go back and sit down, he quickly said, don't you think about it, Noros Luogu. Consider. Luogu rolled his eyes, what's there to consider? Do you think I am the kind of person? Let me teach you a word, a gentleman loves money and gets it in a wise way. Mishita was a little confused while listening, what do you mean? That is to say, Luogu was about to explain, but suddenly found that he seemed to be a little confused. Do these guys know what a gentleman is? Looking back, am I just explaining the content of words with the word gentleman? Then he waved his hand and said, in short, you just need to know that I can't be bought with money. Makita lifted her spirits, although she didn't know why, but she felt a feeling of ignorance. Crocodile almost died of anger. This guy obviously planned to go to the rain feast to smash, and rob, but now he turned a blind eye to wealth. It was simply hateful. Just as he was about to say something, he suddenly heard applause. When everyone looked up, they saw a woman with long pink hair. She didn't know when she was standing on the upper deck again, clapping her hands and saying, satisfied, Tina is very satisfied. Pirate's bounty, don't run away. Author, The Desolate Little Purity. Chapter 92. Looking at the woman who came suddenly, Luogu was a little speechless. If you are satisfied, you are satisfied with a hammer. Do you know that I am quite dissatisfied? The money that cannot be loaded into the hunter's license is equivalent to a pile of waste paper. There is a lot of such waste paper on the ship, okay. But now, if the Navy hears these words, he may misunderstand him again. It's hard to handle. If I have an ugly fight over money in the future, they won't say that I've changed. While she was depressed, she saw Tina jumping down from the upper deck. Although she has always believed in Lester's vision, Tina still retains her own opinion about you. Now it seems that it should be said that Lester is indeed worthy of Lester, even though his own strength is extremely weak. Ste's eyesight has never been wrong. It's very wrong. Luogu rolled his eyes. All in all, Tina is very satisfied. She really doesn't consider becoming a marine. Tina looked at Luogu. If you are willing, you can directly obtain the school-level military rank and work beside Tina. Luogu waved his hand, feeling that some things should be explained clearly. I think you may have misunderstood. I like money very much. Therefore, I have no interest in the Navy or anything like that. Tina sighed, you calmly refused. You even made up such a reason. Tina is very unhappy. Turning around, he looked at those in the cage. Tina thought for a moment and said, now, these here, Crocodile has a reward of million, and this person. She pointed at R1, who had a huge wound on his chest. This guy, if Tina remembers correctly, his real name should be Dasbones. The reward is 7,500 million Baileys. As for the others. Roga blinked. Then I heard Tina say in that steady voice, it's just a trash fish. Hey, 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 I caught it so easily, how could it be a trash fish? Take a closer look, these guys are still very powerful. Lugogu pointed at the half-dead senior agents of Baroque Works. Tina glanced at Lugogu, if you want to show your desire for wealth, this is indeed a good opportunity. But there is a problem. What is the problem? Tina must take them away now. Tina looked at Lugogu, but now, the Navy headquarters has not set an amount for them because they were captured directly, so. What do you want to say? There was a dangerous light in Lugogu's eyes. If he were to do a useless job, even if he was in the Navy, he would definitely not be able to do it. People who struggle for money naturally have corresponding awareness in their hearts. Are you willing to do this to this extent? Tina naturally saw the light in Lugogu's eyes, and then sighed deeply, are you so unwilling to become a member of the Navy? For this reason, she even did not hesitate to do something. I made such a gesture just to show that I am a pirate hunter. Sister, you really can't tell, do I really love money? Lugogu's face turned dark. What the hell is this? Tina understands. Tina spoke suddenly. Lugogu was stunned. You already understand everything, why don't I understand? Tina fulfills your wish. Tina said, tomorrow the Navy headquarters can place a reward on them. At that time, Tina will come over and take away all the others. Really, Lugogu was a little surprised. Can he give in to this extent? It's also because of Lester's face. Tina never lies. Tina stretched out her hand and said, the key. Lugogu thought for a moment, then opened the cage himself. After throwing Crocodile out, he watched R1 struggle for a long time. To be honest, this guy's ability to turn his whole body into a sword is actually quite brutal. But the problem is that it's really ugly. Do you really want to capture this guy into the trap? But if you don't catch them, million will escape before your eyes. People do have to make certain concessions at certain times. Lugogu sighed deeply, stretched out his hand and pressed it on R1. Whether to implement arrest. The choice has been made, Lugogu didn't hesitate. After all, there was a 1/5 chance, so he wouldn't just transfer it to his head. In the next second, the void formed a chain, covering it in an instant, but in the blink of an eye, it was wrapped into a steel dumpling. Successfully captured the killer Dasbones and received a bounty of 75 million belly and 1 black iron coin. During the fall, another member was added. Then he waved his hand and threw it to Tina, when will you pay? Tomorrow, Tina said, tomorrow Tina will bring all the bounties. Yeah, Lugogu nodded, very satisfied, and knew that this woman could do this to this extent, except for Lester's relationship. The main reason was that she probably misunderstood some strange things about herself. Now it seems that what was misunderstood unexpectedly contributed to the success of other aspects. So, after thinking for a moment, he smiled and said, thank you. Tina looked at Lugogu's smile and seemed to freeze for a moment. After a moment, she nodded slightly, see you tomorrow. After finishing speaking, he jumped with 2 people. No way. Lugogu was stunned. He and Mishita walked to the side of the ship and took a look. Sure enough, there was a small boat right next to his ship. Crocodile and R1 were thrown on the boat, and the sail was sailing along the wind at a very fast speed. Could this guy never leave? Lugogu glanced at Mishita. Mishita shrugged her shoulders and looked confused. The actions of these big shots had their own purposes, and her own brain was not very good. How could she know what these guys were thinking? In comparison, the captain is really awesome. Not only is he able to manipulate the people of Baroque Works at the palm of his hand, but he also does not fall behind when communicating with these big shots. Most importantly, be ethical. And while being noble, you can also make money. This is what is called, a gentleman loves money. Does he get it in the right way? It should be said that he really deserves to be a captain, right? By the way, how could the captain do such things as going to Yuyan and ransacking his house? Could it be that the captain said this on purpose just because he noticed Tina was nearby? He just doesn't want others to think of him as too noble. So now that Tina is gone, do you still want to go to the rainy land? Not. I definitely won't go there, right? Thinking of this, Mishita mustered up her courage and said, Captain, where are we going now? Captain, there must be more important things to do. Ah, let's go to the rainy land. Didn't we agree? Luogu looked at Mishita in confusion. What are you thinking about? Concentrate. Oh, Mishita felt that her head was a little hot. Her thinking just now seemed to have been overloaded, and she thought wrong. Could it be that there are other deeper purposes for going to the rain banquet? The captain is unfathomable. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Pirate's Bounty, Don't Run Away. Author, The Desolate Little Purity. Chapter 93. But actually there is not. As it turns out, I seem to be thinking too much. Makita took the big and small bags of money in her hand, put them on the boat, and let out a long breath. Looking back, I saw Luogu dragging a banana crocodile to the bottom of the boat one by one. With a wave of his hand, the two crocodiles that had been killed were thrown onto the deck. After jumping up, Luogu had already stood firm on the deck. Looking at the grand occasion in front of him, he nodded with satisfaction. Great harvest. Makita, who had recovered from the blow she had misunderstood, looked at the treasure in front of her, and her eyes inevitably began to twinkle with little stars. Captain, that's a lot of money. A group of people in the cage were actually watching too and even said, what on earth did you do? Luogu ignored them, but said to Mishita, choose, cash, it's up to you, you have a share here. Pick. Mishita was stunned for a moment and said, pick whatever you want. Yeah, Luogu nodded, it's up to you. Really? Mishita still couldn't believe it. Generally speaking, if the boss eats the big meal and his subordinates can share some of the soup, it is considered that the boss has a conscience. Now, with this boatload of wealth, I can actually choose at will. How generous is this? I thought that I had already sold myself to Luogu, but now it seems that this is not the case. However, just as he was about to make a move, he suddenly stopped. It's hard to choose. You can choose at will, but at what price you choose, if there is no limit, once you get greedy, you might turn around and become Luogu's fitness equipment from now on. If you don't choose, Luogu will definitely not be satisfied. How to do this? For a moment, I was in a dilemma. After struggling for a long time, I finally selected a red gemstone the size of a pinky finger from the box of gemstones. Let's go for this one. Luogu looked at her with squinted eyes. Makita did nothing wrong. Finally, Luogu sighed, walked over, and threw out 2 money bags from the pile of money, which amounted to about million Baileys. Then he chose a gem necklace and a bracelet inlaid with dark green gems, and threw it to Mishita. That's it? Mishita hurriedly took it, then looked at the money bag at her feet, dumbfounded for a moment. It's hard to calculate how much this is at the moment, but the total value is at least million. Captain, this is too much. Makita swallowed. It would be a lie to say that she was not moved, but she was more worried about leaving a greedy impression on Luogu. Isn't that great? Luogu glanced at Mishita and said with a smile, adventure, pirate hunter, what you are actually doing is a business of licking blood from the edge of a knife. If the effort is not directly proportional to the gain, Then how much will it cost? Personally, if you are willing to continue, you deserve these, and there will be more in the future. As long as you remember my words and work hard to strengthen yourself. Who said that the only one who can get wealth, fame, and power is the Pirate King and the Hunter King, right? When he said this, the smile on Luogu's face had widened, and his white teeth were shining brightly under the reflection of the sun. Hunter King. Mishita was stunned. Is this the captain's ambition? In fact, this is just what Luogu said casually, just drawing a big cake. But of course he would not say these words. He looked at Mishita, and, the most important thing is that women have to save some money for themselves. After getting off this ship, I want to find a place to stay. Whether she is a rich woman or she plans to marry a good man, she has some capital and will not be bullied. He stretched out his hand and rubbed Mishita's head. For the rest, if there is anything else you want, take advantage of it now. Otherwise, I will take them all. The things I did accept will not be taken out again, you know. Not enough. Mishita looked at the necklace and bracelet on her hand and nodded firmly. I understand what you mean. Luogu blinked. Had he been misunderstood again? Forget it, this kind of thing always feels like nothing to worry about. It doesn't matter whether they like to misunderstand or misunderstand. Anyway, as long as they work hard and don't cause trouble for themselves. He nodded immediately. Then, I will definitely accept the rest and move it all to my room. All Mishita looked at these things on the deck. After getting Luogu's affirmative look, he could only start to move upwards, and when passing by his room, he also put his own things in the bedroom. After everything was over, Rogu asked Makita to go out and do his own work, while he himself began to respond to the information that Goldfinger had already released. Redemption successful, 218500000 bounty has been credited to account. 200 million. Luogu glanced at the balance on his hunter's license. The total was million. Tomorrow, Tina will come with the bounty, another wave of big income. Do the math, this wave is fat. It's not a waste of hard work. Luogu nodded in satisfaction. Although there is still a distance from a billion, he is no longer desperate. Pushing open the door and going out, I saw Makita humming cheerfully, so I stopped and listened for a while. This girl must be in a good mood today, right? Luogu stood on the side of the ship, pondering in his heart, but he couldn't figure it out. The human heart is always the most complicated thing in this world. Captain. Mishita floated down from mid-air because she noticed the captain's eavesdropping. Luogu smiled and said, "It sounds pretty good." Mishita blushed instantly and singing blindly. "I think you have good eyesight," Luogu joked. "Let the boat cruise around on the Santaella River. Also, prepare to order some wine. There will be guests tonight." Clear. Mishita immediately went to the kitchen. After getting on the boat, her cooking skills improved by leaps and bounds. It just so happened that we had fresh ingredients today, 2 banana crocodiles. Although Luogu said that all banana crocodiles should be brought on board, in fact this is not realistic. There are too many fish to fit. Even if they can be smoked and dried and stuffed into the warehouse, it will take too much time, and they don't plan to stay here for a long time. So Luogu found 2 of the biggest and fattest ones and took them on board, while the others escaped for the time being. Night gradually enveloped. Luogu asked Makita to deliver the food and drinks to the room, and let her go to rest by herself. Mishita didn't want to know more about it, and she didn't wonder who the person Luogu met was. In fact, she could guess it in her mind, but she repeatedly guessed wrongly today, which made her a little afraid to guess blindly. The night gradually became quiet, and the Sundala River became silent. The door to the room seemed to be pushed open by a ghost. As soon as he entered the door, he heard Luogu say, "It is said that the wine is made from purple thorn fruits. It is sweet and mellow. When we first docked in Alabasta, Mishita and I purchased, try it." Don't dare to ask for your ears, but you have your wish. Robin took off his hat, closed the door behind him, and sat down opposite Luogu. Pirate's Bounty. Don't run away. Author, The Desolate Little Purity. Chapter 94. 3 rounds of wine, 5 flavors of food. Luogu patted his belly and said with satisfaction, Makita's skills are getting better and better, and she is slowly becoming a good woman. Oh, Robin glanced at Luogu and said with a smile, sure enough, you are just using her. Do you want to hear the truth or lies? Luogu asked. What is the difference between truth and lies? The truth is very direct, Luogu said. It can also be very hurtful. I like being direct. Okay then. Luogu poured himself a glass of purple thorn fruit wine. Everyone in this world has different values. In other words, each of us is being used. Interesting point of view. Robin thought for a moment. So, don't you think it's unacceptable to be taken advantage of? Luogu shrugged his shoulders. Why can't you accept that this is just the basic rule of this world? Ordinary people use their own value to create results in exchange for rewards. Those in power use the results created by ordinary people in exchange for benefits, and at the same time pay what they deserve the reward. The Navy is also being used, using their force to fight against pirates. Do you think the word use is really so unacceptable? Robin thought carefully and shook his head. I don't know how to refute you. So, do you think that only pirates are truly free and will not be taken advantage of? I don't know. Luogu looked at the darkness outside the window. Perhaps they are the ones who are really being used and know nothing about it. They think they are a group of absolutely free people. Robin shook his head. There is no point in discussing this issue. She is willing to stay with you to avoid the upcoming danger. For her, this may also be taking advantage of you. Luogu smiled and said, I have realized this. Of course, the world is not so indifferent. Using such a word and whitewashing it can also be understood as need. Being needed by others still feels good, right? Suddenly I feel that it must be a very hard thing to be with a guy like you all the time. There are always some things that are used to that will be shattered. Robin shook his head. Now, after eating and drinking, it's time to get down to business. Luogu nodded, stood up and came to the bed, took out the white cloth with historical text printed on it from the quilt, and threw it to Robin with a wave of his hand. Just give it to me. Robin looked at Luogu. What if I don't tell you the content above? Just like crocodile, Luogu said with a smile. Do you believe it? In fact, I have known for a long time that the location of Hades is written in the historical text under the royal cemetery. Robin's pupils shrank for a moment, and then he lowered his eyes. If you had said it at that time, crocodile might not have been defeated so quickly. But you will definitely be in danger in the future. Luogu sighed. Although I hope to fight against a stronger guy, that guy is very difficult to deal with. Once this matter is exposed, he will be separated from the Navy in the future. The first one to go wrong is you. I can't afford this kind of risk. Because you are also the key to me, and I need you very much. Well, with your way of speaking, I have value worthy of being used by you. Robin smiled. Luogu shrugged his shoulders. In this world, there is only one person, and often nothing can be accomplished. Isn't it normal to use one's partners? So, you really don't think about it anymore? No, Robin said, you are a troublesome guy, and I don't want to get more involved with you. But I will translate the historical text for you. As she spoke, she opened the white cloth and looked at it one by one. Finally, she frowned slightly and said, there is not much content. Luogu was a little surprised. So, you can translate everything in it just by looking at it? This historical text is not complete. It should be possible to sort it out completely. What I can tell you now is that it says that the glory has fallen and the kingdom has also come to an end. The dark sky is twinkling with light. Dazzling light and dead flames are burning crazily on the earth. This is the end of everything, but the burning will leaves the seeds of hope and leads them to the distance, there. When she said this, Luogu's brows were already furrowed and he waved his hand. Wait a minute. Well, Robin looked at Luogu. What's wrong? It's just this kind of thing, Luogu asked. What do you want to hear? Robin asked. Luogu sighed, feeling inexplicably uninterested, and waved his hand and said, go on. Well, the origin and end of everything is hidden deep there, and the guide to arrival is left. This weak seed may become a wave. However, they are still searching and never give up. In order to save the last seed, from then on, everyone kept silent about it. There were only road signs that were absolutely indestructible, scattered around the world. Where fate would lead. Having said that, Robin put down the history text in his hand, then frowned and thought. Luogu blinked and said, it's done. What's wrong? Robin asked. So many words, just a few sentences, Luogu said with a dark face, this is too perfunctory. This is indeed the whole content. Robin held his chin. This historical text seems to be the last paragraph of the entire historical text. What is mentioned in it is that the bright red road sign guides the land of hope. What is? God knows. Luogu was a little frustrated. These things are worthless to me. So, what exactly do you want? Robin asked. As far as I know, the contents of other historical texts are basically the same. If you don't want these, maybe historical texts are not the direction you are looking for. After hearing these words, Luogu fell into silence. Robin didn't continue to speak. He lowered his head and looked at the words on the white cloth repeatedly. After finally writing down all of them, he looked at Luogu. But he found that Luogu propped his chin, staring out the window in a daze. She stood up from the chair and wanted to say a few words, but found that she didn't know what to say. It's ridiculous. Luogu scratched his head. Although the historical text is not all I hope for, I still have great expectations for it. Robin said nothing because she didn't know why Luogu was lost. In the end, Luogu patted his face. However, I haven't reached despair yet. If you think about it carefully, there is really a lot of content disclosed here. Unfortunately, more of it can only be imagined. Speaking of this, Luogu suddenly looked at Robin. You have read other contents. Taken together, what is the story about? Aren't you indifferent to this? Robin said, putting away the white cloth. I will take it away and destroy it. The content has been told to you, so, goodbye. Hey, let's go now. Why don't we wait and talk about future cooperation? Cooperate? Robin looked back at Luogu. Luogu smiled. Even if we can't be partners, we are still very good as collaborators. Why don't you think about it? Pirate's bounty. Don't run away. Author, The Desolate Little Purity. Chapter 95. The sky is high and the clouds are wide, which is a good weather for fishing. After Luogu got up in the morning, he sat on the side of the boat and fished, and gained a lot. Makita was busy on the boat, cleaning this side, tidying up there, and then looked at the cage in a daze. The few people in the cage are also in a daze, but they complement each other. Suddenly, Mishita asked Rogu, Captain, are we really not going to stay in Alabasta for a while? Don't stay. Luogu didn't turn his head. But if we don't stay in Alabasta, what should we do with this cage? It can't be left on the deck every day. Mishita said, the prison on the lower level needs to be properly reset. Luogu smiled, of course, but considering the current situation in Alabasta, do you think that even if there are people who can process seafloor stones, do you think they are in the mood to do this now? Maybe there is, Mishita whispered, obviously not agreeing with Luogu's words. Luogu didn't care, and just said, I have already thought about where to process this thing, so don't worry. Where? Mishita blinked. A very exciting place. Luogu turned his head and smiled at Makita. The smiling Mishita felt horrified and did not dare to talk to him, so he continued working. Luogu was fishing while thinking about the content of the historical text he heard from Robin last night. The content of the whole article is quite strange. Since it is a historical text, generally speaking, it should be in plain language, but the content of last night was almost all written in spring and autumn. There are many metaphors. Except for the 4 road signs, more content basically depends on guessing and reasoning. First of all, what is the light in the falling light? It definitely can't be someone's charisma, otherwise, why can it exterminate everything and let the earth burn with fire? Then what the hell are the burning will and the seeds of hope? What kind of history is this? In other words, the person who left this thing behind, even if he recorded it in a special language, was still worried that it would be interpreted, so he recorded it in this way throughout the article. I'm trying to figure it out. Luogu knocked on his head. That light can't be a weapon, right? If you think about it this way, it always makes sense. Radiance is a weapon that makes the earth burn and destroys everything. Then, someone hid the last hope. Well, then, is the hidden seed of hope also a weapon? Otherwise, how can we fight against the glory? When he thought about this, he felt that his speculation was a bit untenable. The 3 most powerful weapons in the world, King of Heaven, King of Neptune, and King of Pluto. If brilliance is one of these 3 weapons, then why don't those who have mastered the weapon of hope seeds use it to resist? And most importantly, Neptune and Fame both have historical texts that clearly record their locations. People in this world don't know about this point, but as an anime party, Luogu still has some understanding. So, there's no reason to lead the way with 4 historical texts to find them. I can't figure it out. What is the seed of hope? What is the burning will and the Vongola family? Is it Hundan? Or is it Konoha? Unable to figure it out, Luogu began to give up on himself, but in the end he became a little more serious. Could that seed of hope thing be some kind of summoner? Well, this is a bad joke. A person telling cold jokes in his own head, it can be seen that his mind is a little abnormal. Mr. Luogu. A voice called Luogu back from the edge of madness. When he looked up, he saw a group of people. One of the girls was waving to him, pushing up her glasses as she waved. The one standing next to her was naturally Tina. Behind her are her men, a large group of Marines. Luogu nodded to them, and soon the 2 boarded the boat. The sailors were not on board, but were on standby on the shore. Mr. Luogu, you really defeated Crocodile, you are really awesome. Have you implemented your swordsmanship? Like a crazy fancier, Daisuke leaned in front of Luogu, asking wildly with eyes full of enthusiasm. Luogu laughed twice. Yeah, I've implemented it, So amazing. Dashki admired, and then took a deep breath. The chaos in Alabasta is over, the king has been recognized by the people again, and all the conspiracies have been exposed. Colonel Tina has decided to artificially reign in this country. Crisis caused by drought. Alabasta will be fine in the future. All this is due to Mr. Rogu. Luogu smiled helplessly, then looked at Tina and said, "Bring it here." Tina waved her hand and threw a card to Luogu. "What is this?" Luogu glanced in confusion, a little confused. "Of course it's a bank card," Dashki said. "Issued by the world government, it is a worldwide bank deposit system. You only need to have this card to withdraw cash at any bank branch. If there is really no bank locally, and can even be extracted at the Naval Division. There is such a thing." Luogu felt that he had opened his eyes, and it was really an eye-opener for the Navy branch to have this kind of business. The world of One Piece is really omnipotent. "Do you need to check the amount inside?" Tina asked. Of course not. Luogu shook his head, and then thought, if he was really short of weight, then he would take the sack and beat Tina's sap. Tina smiled, "You're very frank." Then Tina will take her away. After finishing speaking, he glanced at Mishita again. This woman has not been rewarded, so she has regained her freedom as a tainted witness, but from now on, she cannot escape your sight, otherwise, the Navy still has the right to arrest her. Mikita breathed a sigh of relief, and almost went to help Tina open the cage, but after all, because of Halashi's power, she didn't dare to move forward. Of course, Tina didn't move forward, and asked Luogu to open the cage, and then several Marines came up to take these people away one by one. Before leaving, Tina handed Luogu a bunch of wanted posters. This is the amount of their reward, Tina won't lie to anyone. Luogu also showed a big smile, I believe you. Tina also smiled and said, looking forward to meeting you next time. After finishing speaking, this crisp woman left directly. Luogu looked at Dashki standing next to him and said in confusion, you still have something to do. It's okay. Daisuke shook her head. So, you are going back to the East China Sea? Luogu asked. I'm not going back. Dashki shook his head again. Colonel Smog asked me to wait for him here. He seems to be on his way here. Luogu was thoughtful, then smiled, goodbye then, we are about to set off. Ah, the smile on Dashki's face gradually disappeared. Are we going to break up? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Pirate's Bounty, don't run away. Author, The Desolate Little Purity. Chapter 96. If we parted, of course we would be reluctant. Although Luogu is rather homely on the boat, Daisuke deeply admires Luogu's personality. And he has already regarded him as his goal. Although it is a bit exaggerated to say that the guiding light of life is too much, but it did give her a lot of inspiration. This also made the sadness of parting more serious at this time. Luogu looked at Daisuke, who was depressed for a moment, and felt a little helpless. He was not very good at dealing with such things. Glancing at Mikita, Mikita is relaxed now, turning a blind eye to Rogu's obvious help-seeking eyes, and simply looking up at the sky, whistling, acting like it's nothing to do with him attitude. The corners of Luogu's mouth twitched. Finally, he thought for a long time and patted Dashki on the shoulder. Well, since we have to say goodbye, how about we hold a banquet? Banquet? Dashki was stunned for a moment, then her eyes flashed. Banquet? Yeah, Luogu thought of Luffy and his group. It seemed that after every battle, there was a feast. If this is the case, it is always possible to hold a banquet as a parting moment, right? At least, it can dilute the sadness of parting. Great. Dashki was surprised and asked excitedly, really? Really? If you ask again, forget it, Luogu said. No. Prepare now, immediately. Dashiki excitedly dragged Mikita into the kitchen. Luogu didn't know whether to laugh or cry, then scratched his head. How should I put it? It would be nice to have some fun. Just as he was about to go upstairs, he saw Mishita and Dashki rushing out excitedly. For the banquet, do you want to invite Wei and the others? Wei? Without saying this, Luogu almost forgot that there was such a person. After thinking for a moment, he nodded and said, okay, just go and call and let Mishita prepare. Understand? Daisuke immediately jumped off the boat and ran away in a blink of an eye. This time, she didn't run on two legs. She also had a mount, a big duck of the same breed as Karu. How about adding a dish to the banquet? Luogu looked at the fat duck and thought to himself. In the room, Luogu let out a soft breath and opened the hunter certificate. In fact, he was anxious to leave because of this. At this time, the content on the hunter's license is Hunter Qualification Certificate. Bearer Noros Rogu. LV5 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 LV3 LV5. Coin Black Iron Coin 12. Bailey 632970000. The sudden surge in the amount is of course not without reason. After seeing Robin off last night, Logo came out for some air and saw that all the guys in the cage who originally didn't have 4 lines of characters had 4 lines of characters on them. After careful consideration, he captured all these people and threw them into the trap. A full increase of million in income and 10 black iron coins. The reason there were 10, not 6, was because this time Logo took the 2 unlucky Murlocs and the 2 unlucky Catman brothers into the trap. Now, the second and third rooms between the falls are all occupied, and there are 3 people living in the 4th room. There are 2 more keys of fall, but they haven't been used yet. Well, by the way, the unlucky combination was taken away by Robin last night. As for the ending, Logo didn't care too much, it was just 2 small characters. And now, the 5 people imprisoned in the second cell between the falls are Beige Crow, Sand Crocodile, Killer Dazbones, Shemale Von Clay, and Pallet Marianne. Yes, after careful consideration, Logo put R2 and ISS Golden Week into this fallen building. No way, there is really no way to choose. Tina will come over the next day to take her away. If she doesn't make a choice, the loss can be said to be quite large. This is intolerable to Logo. Of course, if all the agents of these Baroque work agencies are all useless wood like the Cat brothers, then the loss will also be lost. But in fact, Von Clay and Marianne's abilities are actually very good. Von Klein's imitation fruit, which can be disguised as anyone, is extremely attractive to Rogu. Of course, if he is unlucky and ends up winning the Shemale boxing, then Logo can only choose to be autistic. As for Marianne, although she is not a fruit-powered person, her ability to use colors to give people psychological hints can be regarded as an existence of a heaven-defying level to a certain extent. Especially when dealing with certain idiots, it is simply an invincible weapon. All in all, if we can only choose from the existing people, these 2 people are Logo's first choice, and then it will be the turn of guys like ISS Shuangzi. After all, Logo really doesn't like the ability to grow thorns all over his body. As for the 3rd cell, it was a hodgepodge. The rest of the senior agents of Baroque Works and one of the Cat brothers, as for whether it was called Buji or something, Logo didn't go into it. In the 4th room, another Catman brother and 2 Murloc brothers got together. There were only 3 of them, and they couldn't provide Logo with a key. At the same time, when he got Tina's card, Krypton Goldfinger had already reminded him that there was a new bounty to be credited. This also shows that the bank card is not an obstacle at all, and this is the reason why Logo accepts it so easily, otherwise he really has no patience to wait for the bank to withdraw the money and finally credit it. Select deposit, and the total amount in the bank card is million. A group of people from Baroque Works, plus Crocodile, the amount is no problem, and how does it feel? It seems a little more. After pondering for a while, he opened the stack of wanted warrants that Tina gave him, and found the wanted warrants for the Murloc brothers and Catman brothers inside. The total of these 4 losers is only million. After checking the account, Logo suddenly realized, it turns out he noticed it. This amount is the total amount including these 4 wastewoods and all the members of the Baroque Works. Logo originally thought that those 4 would be a gift for Tina, but he didn't expect that he would have noticed it before, and brought all the bounties directly today. And Logo didn't bother with the bounty of those 4 losers. After all, the amount was relatively small. Logo was now considered a big business, and he really didn't pay much attention to these million. So, the current amount is. Logo put the bounty into his account, and then looked at Bailey's total number of 942170000. It's really a wave of fat. Logo subconsciously rubbed his face, but, why is it still less than 1 billion? The key is that it is only million short of reaching 1 billion. Just 1 gold coin and you can get it? But, not yet. Pirate's bounty, don't run away. Author, The Desolate Little Purity. Chapter 97. Luogu was a little dazed. Looking at the amount of Bailey in the hunter certificate, I wish I could take a pen and add a zero after it. But don't say that you can't write it up, even if you write it up, it has to be useful. He sighed helplessly, suppressed this thought for the time being, and then opened the cave. Key to the fall too. Seeing this, Luogu felt a little relieved in his heart. Then he got up, went out, went to the bathroom, washed his hands vigorously, wiped it clean carefully, and then went back to the room and sat down. Today's hands are very red. Because I washed my hands vigorously, my skin turned red. With such a big red hand, if I get the shemale boxing technique, I'll jump into the sea and die. Luogu reached out and clicked in the second cell. It prompts whether to use the key of the fall, and after choosing yes, 5 heads jump out of the fall, and the light rotates back and forth on the heads of the 5 people. Luogu's heart was also pulled up. Just like the lottery draw in the Krypton Gold game, it is too heart-wrenching. Then he suddenly caught a glimpse of Beijiki Luo. Still too young. He suddenly felt that Crocodile's ability seemed to be dispensable to him now. At that time, he thought his ability was pretty good, but after seeing Crocodile, he lost sight of everyone. While thinking in this way, the light began to slow down. Walking slowly between several portraits, and getting slower and slower. Seeing that the light was about to fall on Crocodile's head, Luogu gritted his teeth subconsciously, but suddenly bounced to Crocodile's head again. Luogu's eyes lit up. Crocodile. What will it be? The ability of rustling fruit? Although the skill of fragmentation has already been explained, even if he draws the ability of the devil fruit, he still cannot exert its true power. But even so, the rustling fruit is still an extremely powerful method. Just when Luogu was thinking about it, he saw that light spot suddenly move to Das Bonus's head again. Luogu's blood turned cold all of a sudden. Although Das Bonus's ability is also good, he can't compare with Crocodile. He stared at the light, but found that this time it was as stable as Mount Tai. Depend on. Quick cut, fruit. When Luogu was thinking this way, in the next second, a huge amount of information had already flowed into his mind. In just a moment, Luogu came back to his senses, but his expression was somewhat strange. This is different from what I thought. I can't say it's different, it's completely different. At least it is very different from the ability used by Das Bonus. First of all, this skill does not have the ability to turn itself into a sword. It has become the ability to increase the sharpness of the sword. It is an enhanced ability that allows weapons that originally exhibited sharp attributes to once again improve their sharpness, toughness, and other characteristics. Secondly, this ability can also increase the speed of slashing, but it does not form a single move, it is a complete auxiliary ability. This is a facelift, right? Luogu scratched his head a little. But if you think about it carefully, it's not actually a complete transformation. It's just that the ability that originally affected you has been transferred to the weapon. The disadvantage is obviously obvious. He no longer has the characteristics of the quick slash fruit to strengthen himself. Does not have steel-like defense. But the benefits come from this. It cannot act on itself, cannot transform, and there is no time limit. Instead, it becomes an ability similar to Giant's strength. But it's different from Julie. Julie doesn't stick to its form. It can be used with fists or swords. But the quick cutting skill can only be used on swords. After sorting out this ability, Luogu's eyes gradually shone. If you think about it carefully, with the huge power, quick cuts, and the blessing of armed domineering, the power of Xinuelio's swordsmanship must have improved by leaps and bounds again. In comparison, it is better than a simple quick-cutting fruit ability. One is a brand new ability, and the other is an improvement of the original one. In comparison, I am more willing to choose the latter. Looking at his hands, Luogu nodded with satisfaction. Today's hands are indeed very red, then, keep up the good work. The second key of fall is consumed, and the light spins again. Luogu sat firmly on the Diaotai this time, taking it easy and no longer worrying about gains and losses. People, if you want to grow, you must have a mind that will remain unchanged despite the collapse of Mount Tai. Then he saw that the light fell on Von Clay's head. Luogu jumped up with a shout, "Sir, please don't use the Shiyao boxing technique." As soon as he had time to say such a sentence, the reminder had already appeared in front of his eyes. Fortunately, it's not Shimale boxing. It's ballet. Ballet is very good and elegant, how weird. Luogu almost went crazy. What is ballet? Shimale boxing is more useful than ballet, right? And what's the use of ballet? To entertain yourself? To exercise? In this sea? I'm afraid I'm sick. After being crazy for a moment, he immediately calmed down and said, wait. Ballet may not be just ordinary ballet, it might also be the ability to change one's appearance. What if it has attributes like confusion? It's shameful, but if you can confuse your opponent or something. The idea emerged, but before it was implemented, the information was already incorporated. This time there was very little information, it was pitifully small. Just as Luogu felt a little bit, it was over. Then he nearly flipped the table over. Really, just ballet. It seemed that the world was plunged into darkness. Luogu sat there motionless, looking at his still red hand. He wished he could chop it off now. But can it be said that ballet is not a skill? As a tool for extracting skills, anything that requires practice can probably be called a skill, right? Von Klein's ballet, where is Marianne? Could it be painting? Speaking of which, Crocodile doesn't have the skills to raise crocodiles, does he? Those protagonists who have traveled to the modern parallel universe can rely on these skills to go smoothly, but the problem is that they have traveled to One Piece. It's okay to get such a ballet skill, what's the use? What can I do? What are you doing? Luogu covered his forehead and forced himself to calm down. He wasn't crazy yet. After taking a few deep breaths, he finally calmed down, and then looked at the last skill in the skill column in the Hunter certificate, Ballet LV1, wishing he could pull it out and eat it. He calmed down his mind with a strong heart, and after finally being quiet for a long time, he finally accepted this fact. Between the fall, is definitely a heaven-defying existence, but what the hell, is definitely a deceptive existence. Whether it is against the sky or cheating, it really only takes a moment. No. You have to find a way to save something. Luogu stared at his Bailey again, looking at the series of numbers, pondering and pondering. If you can draw two good abilities today, no, you can even draw two ordinary abilities. Even if he got the She-Monster Fist, Luogu could grit his teeth and accept it, waiting for the other pirates to make money for him. But now, the damage of ballet is infinitely huge. This made him wish he could exchange for a gold coin right now, but there is not enough money. Struggling, and finally, he took out the devil fruit. Although this thing has been placed for so long, it is still a trophy. If Luogu is willing, he can also exchange it for bounty, it's just that Luogu always wants to keep it. But now. It's now. Luogu took a deep breath, and was about to touch the devil fruit, triggering the exchange option. Suddenly there was a knock on the door, and Dashki's excited voice shouted, "Captain, come out quickly, we are back. Pirate's bounty, don't run away." Author, The Desolate Little Purity. Chapter 98. The sudden knock on the door made Luogu stop. He patted his forehead. Why did he become so restless? As a cold pirate hunter, he shouldn't be so easily immersed in the blow of ballet. "Captain, are you there?" Dashiki's voice sounded again. Luogu could only stand up and open the door. Yes. Glancing at Wai Wei next to him, Luogu stretched out his hand and said, "Hello, Alabasta must be very busy. If I just call you here, will it delay your business?" No, Wai Wei shook her head. "Actually, we were looking for you yesterday, but we couldn't find you when we got to the place where the boat was hidden." She took a step back, then bowed 90 degrees. "Thank you very much for everything you have done for the people of Alabasta." "Thank you this time," very solemn. Luogu shook his head, while Wai Wei raised her head and looked at Luogu. "In the future, if there is a need for us, no matter what kind of thing, we will help you." All right, thank you for accepting." Luogu waved his hand and asked, "Anyone here?" "Me and Karu," Wai Wei said. "The others really can't get away." Luogu nodded, and didn't delve too deeply into it. If you think about some issues carefully, it's easy to cool down your blood. Immediately walked out of the door and closed the door. Then, let's start. The wine is purple buckthorn fruit wine, sweet and soft. Of course, meat and vegetables are also indispensable. Although as a banquet, the number of people seems to be a little less, but the atmosphere has always been very warm. This warm atmosphere kept the banquet going on. I thought it would be almost done in the afternoon, but it turned out to be until the evening. When the food is cold, we heat it up and make new ones. When the wine is not enough, we go to the warehouse and move it out. Luogu also gradually opened his heart and told them a few 21st century jokes. Wai Wei became interested and showed off her singing voice. Daisuke showed his unique skills in swordsmanship. Mishita flew into the air and showed her hands, dancing in the air. Luogu looked satisfied, so he held back to perform the ballet he just learned. At night, the lights on the boat were brightly lit, but the sky was gloomy and dark, and the rain was falling, and it was pouring in the blink of an eye. Everyone had to move the table to the cabin on the upper deck, and didn't dare to go to Rogu's room, but Mikita's room was requisitioned just like that. Wai Wei was in the rain, but she didn't come in for a long time. When Luogu went out from the cabin, he saw her standing on the side of the ship, looking at the heavy rain, with an intoxicated expression on her face. Karu next to him seemed to have drunk too much. After being soaked in water, all his feathers shrank into a ball. Luogu took a look and curled his lips. It turns out there is not much meat. The confused Karu shuddered, feeling as if he had escaped. "Captain." Wai Wei noticed Luogu's arrival and smiled sheepishly. "I'll go in right now." "This rain should be done by the Navy," Luogu said. "Artificial rainfall can't only be done with dancing powder." "Dancing fan." Wai Wei's eyes changed slightly, and she sighed softly. "Crocodile, it is using this kind of thing to make the people of the country misunderstand father. Some things seem to be tight, but in fact, with a little thought, you can find a crack in them. In the end, expand them, split them, intensify them, and the final result becomes destruction." Luogu walked to Wai Wei's side, stretched out his hand, and caught the rainwater all over the sky. "However, I believe that from now on, Alabasta will not be in such a predicament again." Wei Wei looked at Luogu, then nodded slowly. "And all of this depends on you," Wai Wei said. Luogu shook his head. "I'm just a pirate hunter with ulterior motives." "Well, I think it's not just me who said this, right?" Wai Wei's face changed slightly, and she shook her head subconsciously, but she couldn't hide the astonishment in her eyes after all. Luogu grinned, "But fortunately, I will disappear from your lives tomorrow. Perhaps, in the very distant future, we will not meet again. Mr. Luogu." Wai Wei opened her mouth, wanting to say something, but after licking her lips twice, she found that she didn't know where to start. "Not called captain anymore," Luogu laughed. "I." Wai Wei blushed again, feeling a little ashamed, but finally mustered up her courage. "It doesn't matter what role you played in between, no matter what your ultimate goal is. As far as I am concerned, according to my words, without your help, Alabasta will not be able to escape from crocodile's hands. Therefore, my words will always be valid. Luogu glanced at the girl in surprise, then said with a smile, "You are fine." Wai Wei was stunned, not quite understanding what Luogu meant, but she heard Luogu say again, "Let's go, don't let them wait too long, women are gossips, and if a man and a woman are alone together for more than 10 minutes, then millions of words can be played out in their minds." Wai Wei really blushed this time, bit her lips and said, "Mr. Luogu, how could you do this? It's too rude, I'm also a woman." Yeah, Luogu nodded, "It doesn't matter, don't worry about the details." "Is there anything else about this matter besides the details?" Unconvinced, Wei Wei followed behind Luogu and entered Makita's room, only to realize that what Luogu said was nothing but nonsense. Tashiji and Makita were hugging each other and crying for some unknown reason. After listening to a few sentences, I realized that these two people were sad because of the upcoming parting. Luogu felt a little helpless, and was about to chat with Wai Wei, but found that Wai Wei's eyes were also red. The three women, who obviously didn't have much friendship at first, became as good as Jinlan's friends in an instant, hugging each other and crying, drinking when they were tired from crying, eating vegetables when they were too drunk, and crying after eating enough. For a moment, Luogu felt as if he had nothing to do with himself. Hearing the heavy rain outside the window, listening to the knocking on the water, he suddenly smiled and simply drank a cup of wine. It's hard for him to get drunk, but this time, he wanted to get drunk. It didn't matter whether it was true or not. It was actually good to relax once in a while. No one can stop a person who wants to get drunk. Luogu fell into intoxication amidst the loud cries in his ears. Faintly seemed to hear someone talking next to him, but he couldn't make out what he was saying. Then there was the sound of eating, and at the end there was a loud belch. When he woke up again, Luogu realized that he was already lying on his bed without knowing when. Fortunately, there was no such thing as a drunken mess, and finally a muddled incident, because his clothes were still on his body, and there was no woman around him. But the problem is, there is no woman on the bed, but there is one sitting at the table not far away. The sitting woman was sleeping soundly, her glasses were hanging crookedly on her ears, and at the end she was babbling, and she couldn't help muttering, "It's so delicious." "It's unpalatable," Luogu frowned. "Yesterday's food seemed to be quite delicious, why is it unpalatable, to eat?" He suddenly looked at the small box on the table. There used to be a devil fruit in it, but now, it's gone. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Pirate's Bounty, Don't Run Away. Author, The Desolate Little Purity. Chapter 99. The problem, it's serious. It is undeniable that everyone drank too much last night. Luogu was immersed in that wanton state, and it was true that he was a little careless, but Qiuyi's drunken state made him very drunk. To be honest, this is very dangerous. Pirate hunters are definitely not a safe existence at sea, and things like getting drunk will be forgotten in the future. But we'll talk about it later. The problem now is, that devil fruit was eaten by Dashiki. This is not an ordinary fruit with tens of Bailey's Academy. Devil fruit can start at million. Is this something that can be eaten indiscriminately? Sitting on the chair, she glanced at Daisuke, who seemed to have done something wrong, and indeed she did something wrong. Her eyes were lowered, and the expression on her face was mixed with grievance and regret. The grievance is really because this happened unknowingly. It is not a mistake in the supervisory sense. Some grievances are normal. Regret is naturally easy to explain. But what Daisuke thinks now is not important. What is important is how this matter should end. Standing on both sides of Daisuke, one is Makita and the other is Wai Wei. Makita will not talk about it, and Wai Wei has not gone back until now, and it is also because of this matter. Hey! Luogu sighed again. As a pirate hunter, he who regards money as his life, was eaten a devil fruit. How should this be settled? Let the Psyche give money. If you sell this girl, you won't get so much money. Luogu's sigh didn't have much power. But it made the three standing girls shudder at the same time, especially seeing Luogu sitting in front of the window, looking unloved. The guilt in the Psyche's heart began to grow layer by layer. Finally mustered up the courage, took a step forward and said, I will lose money. Luogu glanced at her listlessly. Are you rich? It is conservatively estimated that the value of this devil fruit should be at least million berries. Dashki's whole body suddenly turned into stone and turned into a statue, and even cracked. 100 million. Well, this is a conservative estimate. It's the lowest price. Luogu sighed again. Wine is really not a good thing, and then said to Makita, bring the phone bug. Okay. Makita hurried to get the phone bug, and she was also responsible for feeding the phone bug on weekdays. Wai Wei looked at the Psyche, and said in a low voice, Mr. Luogu, how about? Luogu and the Psyche looked at Wai Wei together, and finally Wai Wei lowered her head again. The money I saved is far from enough. Even if it's enough, I can't use your money, the Psyche said firmly. Luogu was not surprised by this. Although Wai Wei is a princess of a country, she really can't help her in this regard. After all, even if Alabasta can take out the million Baileys, Wai Wei will never be able to talk to her father, no matter whether it is emotional or reasonable. What's more, the Psyche would never agree. Luogu doesn't care, but when these two people disagree, his opinion doesn't matter. Soon, Makita brought the phone bug over, and Luogu glanced at the Psyche. Call Smoker. Colonel Smoker. The Psyche was taken aback. This matter has nothing to do with the colonel, right? Whether it matters or not, it's not up to you. Luogu glanced at Dashki. He let you board my ship and assigned you enough tasks. Now, you got into trouble, and you didn't. If there is no way to solve it, isn't it natural to go to your superior? Dashki deliberately retorted, but in the end she found that what Luogu said was reasonable, so she could only concentrate on dialing. After a moment, Smoker's voice sounded, who are you? Luogu is helpless. This person can die if he is more polite. Do you still want to be a gentleman? Crossing Erlang's legs, Luogu said, it's me. Who is it? It's me, Luogu emphasized his tone. There was a clang and the other person hung up the phone. Your uncle. Luogu was furious, and the Psyche hurriedly dialed again. After a while, Smoker, who was furious, said angrily, I warn you, if you make harassing calls again, I will arrest you. Colonel Smoker, I'm Dashiki. Dashiki said quickly. Dashiki. Smoker got stuck for a moment, and then asked, who was that bastard just now? Luogu took the microphone over with a dark face, it's me. Who are you? Nalos Rogu. Rogu gritted his teeth when he said his name for the first time. So it was you, Smoker said coldly. Do you think that, as a pirate hunter, you can make harassing calls to me? Where are you now? Luogu decided not to talk about Dashiki, but to find Smoker and beat him up first. Dashiki and Mikita are already confused. How can they choke while talking? Dashiki hurried over to snatch the microphone, while Mikita desperately held Luogu, who was almost unable to hold back, and Dashiki on the other end quickly said the whole thing. There is nothing to say. In short, during the banquet, after drinking too much wine, the Psyche sent Luogu back to the room, and saw a fruit on the table. In addition, my drunken eyes didn't recognize what kind of fruit it was, so I ate it after a few mouthfuls, and it was still unpalatable. The Psyche was able to eat everything without any leftover, thanks to her extraordinary perseverance. As a result, when I woke up this morning, I discovered that I had some special abilities, and was told that what I ate while drunk last night was a devil fruit collected by Luogu. In a few words, Dashki showed unparalleled expressive ability at this moment. Then there was silence on Smoker's side. After a moment of silence, Daisuke turned to look at Luogu. Luogu's face was as dark as iron. What did he say? He hung up. Daisuke was about to burst into tears. She had never been so wronged in her life. Luogu stretched out his hand with a ferocious face. Dial again. Daisuke didn't dare to disobey and dialed the number again. After a while, the other side connected. Luogu took the receiver, but did not speak, and the other side was also very silent. After a long time, Smoker finally said, "I have no money." And then, Luogu asked coldly. Tell me. Smoker was obviously very helpless. He was not an unreasonable person, not to mention that his subordinates were indeed responsible for this matter. I was mainly angry when I hung up the phone just now, but now that I have reconnected, I naturally have no intention of evading anything. So, now it is time for Luogu to paint his way, and he will follow suit. Say, what are you talking about? Smoker is a bachelor, but Luogu is depressed. What can I say is useful? You are all confident. You are not relying on your own poverty, right? Because I have no money and can't get it out anyway, I just act like I'm barefoot and not afraid of wearing shoes. It's simply unreasonable. This is just like the old lie in the world of pirates. Pirates' bounty don't run away. Author, The Desolate Little Purity. Chapter 100. Anyway, that's the way it is. Smoker decided to act like a bachelor and carry on to the end. Dashiki is right next to you, and you should not know the value of the devil fruit, otherwise there is no reason to keep one. In this case, even if Daisuke is sold, she can't get so much money, so you can do whatever you want. But the bottom line is that you can't bully her, otherwise, even if you run to the ends of the earth, I will arrest you. Hey? Are you threatening me? The blue veins on Luogu's forehead twitched wildly. What's the matter? Can the Navy do things unscrupulously? Calm down. I'm calm. So, what do you want to do? How the hell do I know? Luogu's face turned dark. After a banquet, I lost at least million, and now you ask me what to do. Can I hit people or kill people? The key is, what's the use of it? The point is not what I should do, but what can I do? And this is what you can tell me, not what I can decide. Understand, you bastard? Smoker was silent for a long time after listening. Luogu's room was also completely silent, and it was indeed difficult to move to another place. Mikita and the others looked at each other. Dashiki's head was almost stuffed into the ground, and she was really ashamed to see others. At this moment, there is no point in dying and apologizing. The point is, even if he is dead, it doesn't mean anything to Luogu. Otherwise, if you want to die, or commit suicide. Wait, if death is meaningless. Daisuke suddenly looked up at Luogu. Luogu noticed her eyes, glanced at her, and waved his hand. It's not for you. It's really not for her, although this woman ate her own devil fruit, which caused the current result. But when it comes to anger, Luogu can tell the difference, and Daisuke can't be blamed. If I don't want to get drunk, I can't do anything to myself at all with the drink last night. If she wasn't drunk, Daisuke wouldn't send herself back to the room. This was a good intention, but after sending herself back to the room, eating a piece of fruit or something was just a big deal. The bad thing is that he was drunk and forgot to put away the devil fruit, which led to what happened now. As for Daisuke as a vested interest, although Luogu can't put all the blame on her, the final price can only be paid by her. This is the situation now. As for the current unknown fire, it was completely provoked by Smoker. No, all of this is my fault. Daisuke suddenly took a deep breath, and said to Luogu, "Can I have a word with Colonel Smoker? Alone." After emphasizing the sentence, Daisuke looked at Luogu with firm eyes. Luogu thought for a moment and nodded. Although I don't know what kind of medicine is sold in this woman's gourd, but judging from the current situation, since Daisuke has already realized something, it may be good to leave this matter to her to handle. Anyway, I just have to wait for the final result. After handing over the phone bug to Daisuke, Daisuke went to the deck with the phone bug in her arms. Unable to hear what was said outside, Makita dawdled and wanted to eavesdrop, but met Luogu's eyes, so she had to stay where she was. Wei looked at Luogu, and found that after not talking to Smoker, he returned to that listless look, sitting there looking out the window. It seemed that the window was infinitely beautiful. After a full 20 minutes, Daisuke returned to Luogu's room. The phone bug was still working. After handing the phone to Luogu, Daisuke said, "Colonel Smoker, I have something to tell you." Luogu was ready to fight, and put the microphone to his ear. "Hello. Daisuke will leave it to you. I will expel her from the Navy, but keep the file and wait for her to come back. Then, I will leave it to you." After finishing speaking, before Luogu could speak, the other end had already hung up. Luogu's eyes were full of question marks, and he looked at Daisuke. Daisuke smiled slightly. "Starting today, please take care of me, Captain." What he said was inexplicable, but the confusion in Luogu's eyes quickly dissipated, and he frowned. "It's decided. You know, it may not be completed in a lifetime." "I understand." Daisuke nodded, "but this is the price I should pay. After all, I already have the power of that devil fruit." "Captain, what do you mean?" Mishita asked Luogu. Luogu was silent for a long time, and finally sighed. "This is the only way, I have no other choice. Okay, let's do it." "Thank you." Daisuke bowed deeply. Makita and Wei were surrounded together. "What's going on?" Daisuke grinned at Makita. "From now on, please take care of me. I am no longer a navy. Starting today, I will be a swordsman under the pirate hunter Noro's Rogu. In order to pay for the million starting devil fruit, I worked hard on this ship. It probably means, sell yourself to pay back the money." Makita summed it up very delicately. Daisuke blushed. "It's labor." "It's the same." Makita nodded, acting as if she understood very well. Then, after thinking about it for a while, I felt that this was indeed a solution. Neither Daisuke nor Smoker could afford so much money, but Luogu was generous. He ransacked the house and gave him that much without doing anything at all. If there were Chihuahue's level, if you cleared up 4 or 5, Daisuke would be free again. It's just, devil fruits are often priceless. Can million berries of real money really be exchanged for a devil fruit? After all, the captain seems to be at a disadvantage. After Wei heard such a result, she didn't know what expression to make. She could only pat Daisuke's hand and said, "No matter what, it would be great if this matter can be resolved." Daisuke nodded and looked at Luogu. Luogu waved his hand. "It's time to see off guests, to clean up. Why are you all standing around here?" The three dispersed in a hurry. Luogu looked at his fingertips, but sighed. In any case, this matter can only be resolved in this way. "You can't really sell Daisuke, can you?" Why does it seem that it is indeed sold, but the buyer has become yourself?" "Buy and sell by force." Luogu's thoughts diverged, but he quickly gathered them together, otherwise he would lose his mind. "No matter what, this is the only way to stop losses." After pressing this matter temporarily, Luogu opened his hunter certificate again, and then looked at the ballet LV1 on it. "Suddenly I really want to die." Luogu covered his eyes. "It's really unlucky recently.